This is a download from London's LBC 97.3.
10:34. This is unpleasant, Graham. I don't know what's going on in your head, mate. He's emailed james@lbc.co.uk. A hint, if you are ever burgled, change all your toothbrushes. Otherwise, when you develop the film in your camera, which was mysteriously left behind, you may find a picture of the burglar doing something really disgusting with it. That can't have happened. We should do that as well. We're still looking in vain for a victim of burglary in London who actually saw the scroats who robbed them jailed, or indeed punished in any way, shape or form. It's probably a stretch too far to ask you to get in touch with the programme if you actually got your stuff back. But if you did, the number is 0870 9090973. Perhaps you found it yourself. I'd love to hear from you if you tracked it down through eBay or auction houses or Loot newspaper, anything like that. Small ads. Did you get your own stolen goods back through doing your own detective work? And what is the worst thing burglars do? Do they really do things like putting your toothbrush up their bottoms and then taking photographs of it? Is this what an absolutely unpleasant class of individual they must be. Actually, crime's bad enough. Robbing people shows an absolute disrespect, but there's something so loathsome about adding insult to injury by doing things such as defecating in the kettle or inserting toothbrushes into intimate places. You just wonder, where do these people get off? It's 25 minutes to 11. Can't wait to talk to you on 0870 9090973. We're also looking for the smallest audiences in history, either in terms of size or scale. So it might be a tiny audience, or it might be quite a big audience, but in an absolutely enormous venue, in which case the audience becomes quite comical. Rob is in Amersham. What did you do, Rob?
Hi there. I was with a well-known drummer of an ex-drummer of a British band. And
don't be so coy. Tell us who it was.
Sorry?
Tell us who it was. You don't have to be shy.
John Coughlin, ex-Status Quo.
Of course, yes.
And we were up in JB's in Dudley.
Yeah.
Big venue, about 1,000 people, and 6 people turned up to see him.
No.
And it was pretty awful.
Were you one of the 6, or were you on stage with John Coughlin?
I was playing guitar with John Coughlin.
So how many people were in the band, Rob?
4.
Plus roadies?
Yeah, we had a couple of roadies.
Lighting man?
But the funny thing is that next week we played to 5,000 people in Switzerland, got flown in, flown out, came home, played at the Dog and Duck or somewhere in Edgware to 5 people with a duo.
It's surreal, isn't it? I love that. It sort of keeps you fit. Because he's the ex-drummer with Status Quo, he takes his own band on the road. Do they play Status Quo songs or his own material?
Yeah, we did some Status Quo stuff and a load of other covers. But in England, I mean, the music scene is such that, it attracted no interest.
It doesn't happen, but you go to Switzerland and you can fill a 5,000-seater venue.
Absolutely. Did a couple of festivals
amazing?
There, and they drive across Europe just to see him walk across a hotel lobby.
So the moral of the story is don't play Dudley. If you used to be in Status Quo.
Don't play Dudley. I mean, that was an embarrassing gig. That was awful.
So there was more people in your entourage than there were in the audience.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Terrible.
I love that. Rob, very honest of you, although obviously, your pride didn't let you avoid slipping in the fact that you still played 5,000 people the next week in Switzerland. 6 people in Dudley. What's more embarrassing, the size of the audience or the fact that you've been to Dudley? Dudley. Although Dudley, we should acknowledge at this point, Dudley is responsible for one of the funniest things ever said. You remember when Lenny Henry was funny? If you're young, you won't. But Lenny Henry off the telly used to be absolutely hilarious. Don't know what went wrong with him. I believe it's known in the trade as doing a Ben Elton, but he's just not funny anymore. When he was hilarious, the great gag he had in the be the 70s, would it? Would it be the 70s when he came to? He was a teenager. 70s, possibly the early 80s, when the race situation in this country was possibly even more. Well, no, not possibly. It was considerably nastier than it is now. They were suggesting compulsory repatriation of immigrants. And I think the idea was they'd give you £500 to go back to your place of origin, to which Lenny Henry always replied, "That's great, that is £500 to go back to Dudley." I just love that line. It's one of those things that sticks in your head because it's funny. Should we do that today? I mean, something that just is stuck in your head from your childhood because it was so hilarious. Things that made you laugh and still make you laugh now when you think of the line. Lines that make you happy. Let's do that. And that's not a reference to Kate Moss. Let me make that quite clear. Not those sort of lines. It's 10:38. Kevin's in Upminster. Morning, Kevin.
Hello, Mr. O'Brien. How are you today?
Well, I'm all right. I haven't been burgled lately, but if I was, I've got a horrible feeling that no one would ever get done for it.
Well, I was lucky one time. I must admit, there was a burglar along my road that actually took the 12 houses alongside me, and I came home as he was trying to do mine. But that isn't actually the reason I was calling.
Go on.
It was to do with probably the most inept burglar that I've ever heard of. There's a friend of mine called Dave in Brentwood who came home one day and found that his television had been stolen.
Yeah.
But the burglar had actually dropped a £2,500 Rolex watch that he'd not actually had in his house or possession before, and presumably someone else had been burgled and lost that the previous day or that night.
So he got burgled and turned a profit, your mate?
Yeah, he's hoping the guy will come back again. You never know.
Yeah, well, he might leave a car this time.
If he's lucky.
Or a large pile of gold. Kevin, take care. That's priceless. Charlie's in Orpington. Morning, Charlie.
Morning.
What happened to you?
I had a garage broken into, and I had a couple of fairly expensive things stolen.
Not so like equipment?
Yeah, a chainsaw and a mountain bike.
Oof.
And when the police came down, I was fairly pleasantly surprised that they got the SOCO Scenes of Crimes people down, and they managed to get some blood samples.
Wow.
Soon they actually had somebody arrested.
Yeah.
Positive match. And he confessed, well, he actually said he was only playing on the garage roof.
Right.
Didn't actually break in.
Okay.
But he was apparently about 17 years old.
Yeah. Well, that's, when I was 17, I liked nothing more than to find an empty garage and play on the roof, Charlie.
Well, indeed. So then, anyway, the day of court came. I went to go to court. And basically, before we even went in, the CPS actually failed to get the Scenes of Crimes evidence to court, and basically the judge felt that should we have to go for retrial, it would distress the poor young man too much, so the case was dismissed.
Yeah, this is a great call, Charlie, because, while we kind of put the boot into the police, but not so viciously that they're not prepared to phone us up themselves and talk to us, the CPS and the legal system can also be to blame for the fact that people can rob you and get away with it.
And somewhat ironically, the fellow actually arrived to court in the back of a secure van because he was actually on remand in Felton for other crimes at the time.
Sounds like a lovely bloke. I bet his mother's proud. Charlie, you take care. Karen's in Enfield. What happened to you, Karen?
Hiya, James.
Hello.
Hello. I was burgled a couple of years ago by 5 underage children.
Oh, I see. So
Yeah.
they can't be underage children.
No, sorry, underage. They was 15, 16.
Although I suppose you could argue that people like Nick Ferrari and myself are overage children, but I don't know if you have such a thing as underage. Anyway, there they were burgling you.
Anyway,
Yes.
so I've come home and I've been burgled, and it's a real terrible mess. I called the police. They came out within, this is very late on a Saturday night, so they came out probably about half an hour, 40 minutes after I called them.
That's not bad.
Oh, it was excellent.
Yeah.
They came out, looked at the damage, etc., and said that they'd get the scenes of crime out the following morning, which they did, because obviously it's not a murder, it's not going to take priority.
Yeah.
They came out 8 o'clock the next morning. They took forensics, they took DNA because they dropped cigarettes.
Oh, fantastic.
They took footprints, they fingerprinted everything. They literally went through the house top to bottom.
Why did you get this sort of treatment when other people barely get their calls returned, do you think?
Well,
Are you
can't say.
exceptionally attractive, Karen?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, there is. And do you have a reputation down at the Enfield, Nick, for the quality of your sandwiches?
It's been said.
Okay, well, that might be one of the reasons. So they come around, they do all their bits, they do all their CSI type business.
Literally, yeah, did the whole lot. They'd also done another couple of places that evening as well.
Okay.
Monday morning, I had another officer came round, took a statement, etc. Monday afternoon, they had a few suspects in mind. I think because it's a group of kids, they kind of know.
Hang on a minute. Did this happen in London in the last few years?
Yeah.
Are you sure you're not
Yeah,
describing some
no.
far-off, distant world?
No, I'm afraid this is absolutely true.
Good grief.
Monday afternoon, Monday afternoon they'd stolen a car and called up because they'd run out of petrol. They'd called somebody and somebody had called the police, and that was that. They went and picked them up, and they were wearing some of the items that they'd stolen from me, some clothes and some jewellery, and that was that. They nicked them straight away.
Bish
And
boss.
a few weeks later, they went to magistrates. It was referred to Crown Court, and they was all charged. Unfortunately, they got rehabilitation orders.
Because they're young.
Yeah. I got letters of apology from them.
Did you really?
Yeah, I've still got them, yeah. And I actually went and met one of them.
Can you do me a little favour?
Go on.
Actually, first of all, I want to hear what happened when you met them. In fact,
I met one of them.
that cancels out the favour.
I wasn't brave enough to meet all of them. I met one of them.
No, of course. So who set that up? The
CPS.
CPS. And what happened? Where did you meet?
Obviously, all under their kind of jurisdiction.
No, of course.
Else. You go and meet with them.
No, you didn't go round his house or something like that.
No, actually, I didn't invite them around mine either.
No, funnily enough.
There was...
They'd have found it all right, though, wouldn't they?
They would have done. 4 boys and a girl, and I met the girl.
Okay, and how did that go? Was it useful in any way?
It was excellent because she was absolutely terrified of meeting me.
Go on.
And it was really good for me. And because I at the time I was living on my own. Oh, my little one's in.
That's all right.
At the time I was living on my own, and I was really nervous about going back there and things like that after I'd been burgled. And once I'd met her, and there was this literally innocent, young-looking girl.
Terrified child.
Exactly, and it just took all the fear element out of it away. So I was really glad I met her. And they'd actually said to me, the CPS said, meet with this one because this is the only one that may have a chance, kind of thing.
Really?
Yeah, and I think it's great. And I met her parents as well. They came along.
Really?
Yeah, so it was really good. It was really worthwhile.
And do you think it would have worked? I mean, because you saw the fear in her face. Do you think next time the lads she's with say, let's nick a car, she'd have gone, I'm not in for this?
Yeah, I think so, because her parents were actually more upset than I was.
Yeah, but it's often the way.
Certainly they were devastated.
Whenever the police have been called because of my behaviour, my mum's always been considerably more upset than I was.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Goes without saying. You take care, Karen, and make sure that little one never gets into any bother with the force. I love imaginative punishment. I want to make that clear. I'm not a conservative MP. When I talk about imaginative punishments, I mean something quite different. So a quick word with Graham, only because he's in Scratchwood, and I love saying that word. Morning, Graham.
Good morning to you, James.
What happened to you?
Well, mine's a car crime story. My son and I are both private hire drivers, and over the last 2 or 3 years, we've had our cars broken into 4 times. Obviously, of course, as private hire vehicles, people assume there's going to be cash in them, I guess.
Well, yeah, because you'd all do that, wouldn't you? When you get out of the car, you'd all leave a big box of money under the chair, wouldn't you?
Of course we do. Of the 4 occasions, the police actually turned up on one of them. The first time, they didn't turn up. My son rang them up, and they said, well, if you want the car fingerprinted, bring it down to the police station in 2 days' time. We've got a fingerprint clinic.
Yeah.
The second time, we rang them up. They said, oh, it's just kids after drugs money. We can't be bothered. So we actually took the items that had been disturbed and clearly would have fingerprints on them up to Uxbridge Police Station, where we were told that they wouldn't be bothered.
Really?
Yeah, to fingerprint them. We pointed out that they'd taken 21 hours to attend when my son was assaulted by a customer a few weeks before, and that we were less than happy, and we'd go to our local MP, and all of a sudden they decided to fingerprint them.
Yes.
We got a phone call a week later saying, just come and collect them, please, there's nothing there.
Oh, okay.
The third occasion, our local policeman, and we live in Luton.
Oh, hang on, we're getting late for the travel, Graham.
Yeah,
chop, go on.
There they turned up, found some blood on a little fragment of glass where the kid had broken the window, and they matched the blood stain.
Thank you for listening to this download from London's LBC 97.3.